leverage, and leverage is not leverage in the term of financial leverage. It's leveraging time and figuring out how to look at our profession as a business as opposed to a practice. Does anybody think that they have a practice like a doctor or a lawyer, or do you look at this more like a business?
Can we have a third option as like a hobby and enjoy it and still make money?
Hobby, enjoy it, and still make money. Well, I think some people in professions enjoy what they do as well. Not necessarily perhaps medical, but I think maybe some people do. But my goal here is to reframe what we do with a little bit more intent. And you know, I see a couple of people put on their business, and what's the difference between a profession and a business? Anybody want to try to frame that for us?
A profession is someone that's educated in their craft. A business is someone who is building I guess you know, whatever they're opening, if a window company or you know, there's not much of an education behind it. That's my take on it.
So I would agree conceptually there, and I think that's a good frame of reference, Ron, to start with, because when you have a business, it's not necessarily dependent upon you, Ron, as the participant, right?
Right.
And if you have a good business, you can replicate it, right? Like if you look at I've been traveling, but if you looked at like a franchise business, like I hate to use the franchise McDonald's, but if you look at a McDonald's, those are often owned by a group that owns 15 or 20 of them, right?
Excellent.
And one person can't be in all 15 to 20 of those stores running it. So that's really a business that's following a system. And, you know, I look at like a doctor, and I'm going to give us a reference, which I think is relevant. In my area where I live in Westfield, there used to be a lot of independent doctors who ran their practice, and the norm would be they would purchase a residential type building in the downtown. They put parking for 4 in the back. As a matter of fact, our office in Westfield at 143, our original office used to be a doctor's office, and the doctor would run his or her practice out of that building, and it was completely dependent upon the doctor. Okay, if the doctor retired, just like a real estate agent retiring, a lot of times those patients are left scrambling to find somebody else. What I am suggesting here is in our business, we need to look at it more like a practice. And this is what's happened in my market, or my hometown of Westfield, is all these independent doctors have joined practices. They joined Summit Medical Group, Atlantic Health, or the Barnabas Group. They work in a group, and there's centralized billing, there's a centralized reception, there's a centralized appointment center, there's a really high quality interaction where you can get all your medical records online. You can set an appointment, you can ask the doctor. Technology has helped. Doctors, I imagine, can more easily go on vacation and have people cover. If I break my arm and I need to go to a orthopedist, there's somebody in the group that can help us with that. That to me is changing the practice of medicine into a business. Does that resonate with anybody on the call? I see Bruce is raising his hand, Ron shaking his head. How about you, Jim, or Napri? What do you think?
So definitely I see that going on more and more, both, gosh, you mentioned on the medical side, and it definitely is we're seeing it down here more and more. We'll continue to see some migrations of the independents.
And I think, Jim, you also see that in law down in Florida, because I see all those billboards that are groups of lawyers that are looking to sue the truck driver that hit you, right?
Luckily, no, but there's a cancer one that's out there now, the new one.
So the industries are I would say consolidating, and if we take a fresh look at our business, right? Are we not seeing a lot more of teams in our business?
Oh, absolutely.
And teams are basically it's the same concept, right? And you know, people do teams differently. Years ago, people would open up their own little office. Now I think people are building teams within brands to utilize the leverage and the scale that you can get by having that type of an association. And my definition, which is a kind of a corny definition of what's the difference between a practice and a business, is a business is one where you can go away for a week, 2 weeks, or a month, and you can come back wealthier than you did when you left, because you have a business that is creating value without you making the hamburgers, if that makes any sense, right? Without you flipping the burgers.
Absolutely. I was at the Workman team event last week, and it kind of reminded everyone about when you go to sell your business, what's your business? Is it, your contacts? Yeah, it's your contacts, but if you're a sole individual doing everything and they only know you, it's harder to sell that book of business, as opposed to having that team environment where you have people and the systems in place so it operates without you and allows you to do your vacations and things like that. So
and part of the attraction to real estate, somebody made a comment like it was like a hobby that they like to do, and I think that most of us are drawn to this business because we like to help people, and we enjoy, or we're passionate about like the real estate industry and the business. And sometimes that fogs our vision on where we need to be. And I know some of us always feel like there's nobody that can do it better than we do it. I'm going to try to see if I can mute some of the people that are not mute everybody. I think some of us get into the business and we feel like that delegating is a bad thing. Does anybody feel like delegating is a bad thing? Like, oh, my client will be disappointed if I have somebody else step in and fill in for me on something?
That is a good question, because when someone is used to you, like if I'm mailing in my farm areas and people who know me, and I send my son out, they're going to say, well, where's Ron? So that is a good question. I would say probably not to an extent of the professionalism of the person's taking your place.
So that's a big,
or the education.
That's a big question though, right, Ron?
Huge, yeah.
And where do you draw the line?
Well, I guess you have to have the trust in the person that's going to be standing in for you. So I think it's, it's hard for me to let go of my business because my son is learning the business now, and I want him to take over eventually. But it's hard for me to hand everything over to him without knowing it's going to be done correctly. So I would say it's probably a little bit difficult to let go.
Let me ask you to think about this. Did anybody ever have anything that happened in life with you as a customer or you as a practitioner where there was a problem that occurred And what defined us was the way that we solved the problem, not that the problem never happened. It's like owning up to it and solving the problem. And because of that, we strengthened the relationship we have with our client, or the person strengthened the relationship with us.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah, I would say yes. Mhm.
Because like sometimes if you say, you know what, I made a mistake, I'm owning up to it, I want to fix it, and you fix the mistake, like the people will be like, oh my God, this guy Ron, he dropped the ball, but he really stepped up, he got it done. I would not use anybody but Ron because he's awesome. Sometimes the mistakes that we make or the challenges that we have as we're growing can help define us in a positive way and not a negative way. And this is not designed to offend anybody, but we need to get over ourselves, like that we're the only person that can do it. And even if we are maybe the most qualified person to do all the tasks, sometimes when we try to do too much, did things fall through the cracks, Ron?
Absolutely.
Right? And does that denigrate the service and the reputation that we're looking to build?
Nope.
So if you want to grow, you have to, trust and hand over things to your son
Of
and the
course.
people on your team. And you have to have the expectation that they will make some mistakes and that you'll make corrections. And sometimes correcting the mistake actually creates a better experience because they're like, oh my God, they made a mistake, but they fixed it. And I'm so thrilled to be working with Ron, and they'll tell everybody because we did that.
Yeah.
So that's a couple of, things I wanted to set as a preamble to, the meat of my discussion. And I took some notes. I'm going to go back to my notes without putting it on the screen, if you bear with me for a moment.
While you're looking at your notes real quickly on dealing with a transaction, you made me think about it because it's important if we're going to release our responsibilities and trust other people in our businesses, we need to let our clients, our customers know who's involved in the picture. And if we set up a CRM for those that are using it and let people know, hey, we got a transaction and these are my key players. These are the people who are going to be in contact with you. But you've got to make it human, because this transaction that I'm dealing with right now, that's pretty much with a law firm and an AI type of real estate organization. There is no communication except strictly on an email and their application, and you can't reach out and talk to anyone. So you got to, still be human with people in a transaction and not just expect everything to be automated. So I like to keep that in mind. It reminded me of that.
So changing, I think communication, Jim, is kind of key in setting the right expectations and then also measuring how things are going. And it's not only if we're kind of, I'm going to use Ron as an example. Ron, if you turn over some of your top tier clients to your son because you're busy, you're doing other things, or because you're taking time off, right? Should a client have to wait for Ron Piccolo to come back from vacation if they want to transact? The answer is no.
No.
And should you have to always be checking in to see how things are going with the client? Well, I think if you're building out trust with your son or your team, right, you're going to trust what's going on. And if the team member gets in over their head, hopefully they have the judgment from what you trained them to come back to you and say, hey, I need a little bit of help, team leader.
Right.
I remember early on in my career, one of the first teams that was building out in the organization was going through these struggles because teams weren't prevalent, in the 90s when I was doing this. And it was a lot about, we were the brand, like, Ron Piccolo, Lisa, Evelyn, you were all the brand that people knew. And how did you give somebody else to service your brand? And I remember this team leader came to me and said, look, Rob, I can do everything, but I can do anything, but I can't do everything, was the comment, right? So he can do any role, and he thought he could do it probably better than anybody on the team, but he couldn't do it consistently and scale by doing everything. So when he hired his transaction coordinator, it took some trust. But what he did was he said that because they're doing it all the time, they know when they need to come to him to deal with a problem, that there would be a better service level provided to the client. And that was hard to do because who on this call, either, put it in the chat, or if you're on camera, raise your hand. When there's a big problem with the file, who in this call believes that they need to be involved to solve that big problem when there's a transaction? Raise your hand. I see 2 hands. I'm going to stick up with Jim. Is there anybody that feels comfortable that somebody else can handle a big problem that's grown in a transaction? Anybody feel like you can delegate that? Bruce does. So,
Yeah.
so changing the mindset there, for all of you who raised your hand, that's a limitation on how we can grow. And I know that we all are doing it from a perspective of, servicing our client by being available to handle that. But if you think about it, and I go back to, I use this quote a lot because it really impacted me. If you're a master in your craft and you can help a lot of people, you have a moral obligation to help as many people as possible, because face it, we change lives by helping people, decide to buy or not buy. If we have now over 70 people on the call, if a client went to each one of us differently, there's a good chance they'd buy in a different neighborhood. Some would be successful at getting an offer accepted. Some wouldn't. Some would be frustrated and move on to another agent. If we're committed to helping people, we have a moral obligation to help as many people as we can and do the right thing. If we really believe our service is superior, right? And we can build a better system. And then once we help more people financially, we find abundance in our own life. Does that make sense? Right? So it's not about like chasing the commission. It's about, hey, how can I help as many people as possible? And how can I build a system where, I'm able to leverage myself to help more people? Because if you're doing all the business yourself, you're preparing commission statements, you're doing all the online papers, you're negotiating home inspection issues, you're meeting the appraiser, you're meeting the home inspector, you're doing the walkthrough. If you're doing all of those things, if you want to put in the chat, how many transactions can you do in a year? In addition to marketing yourself, how many transactions can an agent do in a year if you're doing all that yourself? I want you just to put it into the chat. Like, what do you think the average agent can do doing all of those things?
Personally, I think probably 10.
10?
I mean-
That's pretty light. I was thinking more about 24 or maybe 30, right? Jim's saying under 20.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
So, and if your average commission's $8,000 and you're doing 15, that's 100 grand. You're doing 25 at $8,000. That's probably $150,000 to $200,000. That's kind of your cap, right? If you don't leverage.
Well, the thing is that the more, it's like some of the agents that we have that may be online here with us, but when you're doing 50 or 60 deals a year, you need to have a transaction coordinator, you need to have an assistant, and maybe one or two buyer's agents, because it's impossible. I remember I was doing 110 sales a year. It was impossible for me to handle everything. So I had to get a whole staff to help me out because all my job was to go out there and get listings. So without having that staff or that other person to help me and keep me on track, it's almost impossible. No one can do it.
Right. So you need to scale. Now, if we go back to like the medical, and I want to keep changing gears, we go back to like the doctors that used to be in Westfield. Do you think that billing patients has gotten more complicated or less complicated in the past 20 years?
More complicated.
Yeah, I would say I would say probably right now, if you put like the wrong subcode on something, the insurance company is probably not going to pay you, right? And if you give somebody the wrong treatment without getting it pre-approved, Anthony, you think they're going to pay you, even if it's something that they would normally approve?
No, I don't think so.
Right. So there's procedures that have to be followed, and it's a lot more complex. And if a doctor's trying to figure out all of those things being a soloist, do you think they're going to be able to stay in business?
No. As a matter of fact, Rob, I know personally firsthand because my wife used to be employed by Atlantic Health, and how they changed the whole systems over, because we did have a doctor's office right here in town in Ringwood that was independent, and then they merged with Atlantic Health. And then there was a whole bunch of systems that they put in place, just like you were talking about. The one thing that I see that is a demeanor is that there's a 15-minute slot for a customer. And now, in order for the medical people to be profitable, they have to double book that 15-minute slot just to keep up with the momentum.
Right. So what you're saying is there's systems and there's a formula for success in the medical field. And I think a lot of people go into medicine because they're really passionate about helping people. It's also a good, a lot of them do very well financially, but I think a lot of people go there because they want to help people. And I think a lot of people come into real estate because we truly want to help people. And if we have the paradigm and I'm going to call it the traditional mindset or the old mindset that they need to have face time with us, it's very limiting. And based upon the chat, I'm going to go back to that. I mean, we're hearing under 15 to under 20 is what somebody can do on their own. And I hope everybody on this call here, on this Zoom meeting, is looking to do more business than that. And my passion or my existence is to figure out a way to share best practices that I've learned from working with a lot of great people and get you out of your comfort zone and get you to designing a life instead of running a business. Right. I'm going to go back to my notes just because I don't want to, ramble and forget some key things here. On my notes, I put why leverage won't work for realtors. This is what traditional agents, have shared with me over time. And if there are any other ones, I want you to give me the argument why it won't work. And then I'm going to take a massive hammer and I'm going to crush that right before your eyes so that we can figure out how we better serve our clients, live a better life by changing the way we do things. We are realtors. Our clients expect us to be available to them. And some of them, we set the expectation, call us anytime, we're always available, right? I mean, it would make more sense for a doctor to always be available than a realtor. It's not like there's a 11:30 on a Saturday night emergency for you to call your agent, right? Another limiting belief for realtors leveraging themselves is I cannot afford to pay someone to help. Number three, Anthony, nobody can do what I do. Like they're hiring me. That's why they're hiring me. They want me. Another limiting belief is, yeah, I buy into that, but how do I actually get started? It seems really complicated. And then there's what if I train someone and he or she quits? Are there any other reasons that, you guys on the call, guys and ladies on the call, have why you don't go all in on levering yourself? Any other reasons, or did I hit most of them?
A lot of people don't do it because it's easier not to do it, Rob. It's just easier to keep doing the same stuff and be busy with all the stuff you do. It's you got to analyze and take a look at it, you know?
You're saying it's comfortable, Bruce, right?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And that's the difference.
Now, you know what the analogy I'm going to use, Bruce, for that is you know the frog analogy, right?
I don't know, maybe. I think so.
So the frog analogy is if you were to take a frog and you put him in boiling water, it's going to
yes,
be so
yes.
hot he jumps out, right?
Right.
But if you take the frog, you put him in lukewarm water and you slowly boil it, he's going to be comfortable until he just fries. And he's fried. And that's what happens to us in this business. We get in our comfort zones and we fry, we burn out because it's comfortable to do that. And I think that's something that sometimes a mentor, somebody who cares about you, needs to tell you that, you know, we need to elbow you out of your comfort zone so that you can think strategically.
Rob, if I could just add one thing, just to put an upper limit on the conversation as well, in terms of how many transactions do you think you could do yourself in a year? I don't know how many of you, if any of you, had the opportunity to watch the interview yesterday with the agent named Q for Remax, who talked about how he did 500 transactions in his first 4 years. Okay, and you know, he talked about talking to thousands of people a week. I mean, there's a level of dedication that motivated him to be that type of agent. So talk about getting out of your comfort zone. This was a guy who just had been an accountant and decided that that wasn't for him, and came into real estate not knowing anything. And, you know, right off the bat was talking to not hundreds, but thousands of people. And just drove himself to the point that he could do that kind of business. So,
Must be a young guy then.
well, I mean, you know,
I'm just kidding.
he was. I mean, you know, he's only, you know, I guess 4 or 5 years out of college after getting a master's degree in accounting.
So
Well-
good.
think that based on some agents' personalities, they may like the excitement. They may like the idea that everything may be going a little crazy, and then they're able to finish the task. And it's a self-esteem thing.
Yeah.
Based on the agents that I've met.
So Maurice, I think that's a great reason why people don't even look into it, right? Because it's a belief system that they have that, you know, nobody can do it better.
New people don't know any damn better. They just do it, man. Simple as that.
Yeah. Getting your real estate license teaches you the foundations of real estate. It doesn't teach you how to sell a house, which is level 2, and level 3 is how to run a business, right? So level 1 is passing the test. And in New Jersey and Florida, there's like probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of licensees, right? They were smart enough to pass the test, but they didn't learn how to sell real estate. Then there's a subset of the licensees that really figured out how to sell real estate, but they haven't figured out how to run a business or design a life. And, you know, this job can be, you know, it has flexibility, yes, but it also has whatever the opposite of flexibility is when you don't have the systems in place, right? I'm sure that everybody on this call has made sacrifices where you've made plans for yourself that you look forward to, or your friends and family. You're going to go do something, and then, you know, something happens. You know, you get a big listing appointment, or a client comes in from out of town, you know, usually with a big dollar amount. You're like, oh my God, I got to cancel this. I can't go to this family event. I can't watch my kid play baseball. I can't watch the playoff game. I can't go to a birthday party. I can't take that day off to go somewhere because I have to go help this person. Is there anybody here that's been in the business for more than a year where that's not happened, where you've made that sacrifice?
Just to piggyback really fast, Rob, on what you said, I think I'm keeping on myself. It took me about almost 2 years to realize that this is a business and that I'm a business. When I first started real estate, it was just a selling thing. And then I realized, wait a minute, I have to create a structure that maybe one day I can sell this. So it took years for me to realize, wait a minute, I'm creating an actual business that I may be able to sell one day. And that's something from a new agent, I didn't think like that. I just thought that I was working for, myself, and basically had a lot of time to create whatever I was doing. But it took me years to realize, well, wait a minute, my name and what I'm doing is actually going to be able to be sold one day if I do it the right way.
Right. And who from our Florida team went to the Real Teams event? If you want to unmute yourself and just announce yourself.
Well, this is Jim. I went to the event last week. Very good event.
Okay. And did you come away inspired to put some systems in place and get a little bit more structure in your business?
Oh, absolutely. Moving forward, one of the biggest takeaways that I got when Burl was talking about, not being the Jim Nyquist team, get them, because that's not sellable. So how to position yourself as the plantation, luxury home team or whatever, just getting away from being that Jim's team. Because when you're a team and you have a separate name that's maybe an area or whatever, a specialty, that's going to be more sellable as a business than just Jim. So that was a big takeaway, looking at building a team, stepping forward to do things. And going back to one of the questions you had asked, for me, it's always been, if I'm concerned about my own financial well-being, going through periods of dry times, how am I going to be responsible for employing someone and making sure that their family's fed? So that limits me for growing.
It's also exciting, as well as intimidating, in my opinion, Jim, when you make that decision to lever up and change lives. Because when you do something, if you bring somebody onto your team, I think you have an obligation. You have that same moral obligation to guide them to success, or if they're not committed, to have an honest conversation about maybe this isn't the business for you. Because unless you've walked a mile in our shoes, our business looks glamorous from the outside, right? But from the inside, it's quite different practice, right? I mean, a lot of things can go wrong, and you have to have the right mindset to overcome those and persist and continue in this business. So, I'm glad that you are inspired. And I think even redefining what a team means, Jim, from naming it after yourself to maybe a team is even, there are 3 agents in an office, right, that want to, create a team just for sharing resources, right? You hire a transaction coordinator, you hire a runner, you hire a showing agent, right? I mean, there's nothing stopping you, Jim, from going with, Michael and Scott and, Pavla in your office and saying, hey, let's get together. Let's hire a transaction coordinator. Let's hire a runner so they can do these activities that don't require, Rob Lazar or Jim personally to do it, right? And then if you do that, you can have some more time off. You can spend time at higher activities or income producing activities, right?
I think the majority of realtors do not like the busy work. To hire a transaction coordinator or someone to assist with that would give them a lot of freedom, a lot of time to grow and more time to, expand their team. It's the personalities generally don't blend. If you're a really good people person, the busy work is, just daunting for them.
Mhm.
I had an agent once who said, I'm not doing the business I want to do. And I said, well, that's because you're doing the business you shouldn't be doing. Hire a transaction coordinator, get someone to help you. Well, it's going to cost me money. I said, I promise you that you will see the difference. You will make more money. If you don't, I'll pay for the transaction coordinator.
So,
Then I don't suggest everybody say that.
so
But he did double his business. He's an extremely successful realtor now, and he was extremely anal, very hard to let loose of anything. He now has a team of 5. He has a transaction coordinator. He also has a partner that helps him run his team.
So Colleen, I here's something that I saw. Top producers are not people who never fail, but they're people who never quit.
Exactly.
And you know what? When you want to build out these systems, the busy work that we all don't like to do, when you first start to build out a system, it takes you 3 to 10 times the amount of effort to build out a successful system. Nothing just happens like overnight. But once you build that system out and then you keep refining it, it's going to serve you. But most people quit, at the, they spend 2 or 3 times the amount of effort it is to do it before the system's perfected or at least proficient. And then they just go back to doing it themselves, right? We all have these demons in our head, and I'm just going to repeat these objections because I want everybody to take a massive sledgehammer in their head and just crush these. We're realtors. Our clients expect us to be available to them. That is a tremendous limiting belief in this business, and it's so false. Okay, the client doesn't need you to open the door for the final walkthrough. Get over yourself. There may be something there, but you need to get over yourself. The client doesn't need you to go on the home inspection with them. Okay.
But Rob, you said about the experience of hiring you, or not. I believe that's about the experience. I think they hire us to be a part of those moments because not only can we guide them, but they feel comfortable with us, especially having the interview. The buyer has an interview with us, and we basically make them feel comfortable enough to hire them. And then all of a sudden, we go to the first showing, and then they put an offer in, and now we're passing them along. And granted, yes, we're available. Sorry, hold on. Granted, we're available to answer any questions, but when they talk to their friends and their family members about how we did, they're not going to talk about how we answered questions. They're going to talk about, oh yeah, he went with me here, he went with me there. We laughed, even though this was a situation that may have caused me anxiety. I think that's about the experience. So at one point, do you believe that you're trading the experience versus the actual work? I understand the paperwork. I'm not talking about the paperwork. I'm talking about the face-to-face experiences.
So Maurice, do you believe that what's the limit that one person can do in number of transactions in a year? Like a practical limit?
Well, unlimited until you reach your point.
No, but if you're going on all the like you're making an argument why you should be at a home inspection, right? Because that's part of the experience.
I'm making an argument about at what point do you stop giving them the experience.
But this is a great conversation. So if you wanted to work 40 to 50 hours a week, right? A normal work week, you're not gonna, spend your entire life trying to sell real estate. And you want to be there for those experiences, as you put it. How many transactions do you think a proficient agent should be completing in a year?
I would think between 13 to 16.
Okay. And if your average commission was $8,000 and your expenses, like your expenses to the brokerage is, let's say 20%. So that's going to give you about 6,000. So you're probably going to make less than $125,000. Financially, I'm not satisfied, and I'm not putting, expectations on everybody, but I don't think that's going to give somebody in Southeast Florida or New Jersey an abundant life from an economic standpoint. And secondly, Maurice, I think that, you should find a system where you can help 50 people buy and sell houses and set different expectations on what they can find, how that process works, right? Because there's a lot of agents out there that aren't as talented, aren't as committed as those of you on this call. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So,
Rob, when you look at successful teams, successful realtors, and Maurice, I think if it's how it's presented, when you present it to the client, when you're there, that you have a whole team that you work with. So there's just not one person that's going to take care of them. You have a whole team of experts that's going to take care of them. So every need they have will be met. And you can do a virtual presentation and introduce them to your team. Let them see who they'll be working with. This is the person that's going to handle the dates and the specific things with the transaction that you'll need. I want you to meet Mary Ann. If you present it that way, it's even more impressive because they feel that they have a whole group that's out there working for them. I mean, what if you got sick? Who's going to take care of them? It's how you present it. And I think, go ahead.
And Maurice, when you go to the doctor, right? It's a very, it's a professional experience, right? And if your doctor is qualified and they have poor communication skills, you might not go back to that doctor. But I would say that most people aren't offended if the administrator on the way out makes our follow-up appointment. Most people aren't offended if a nurse or an associate takes our blood pressure and does all the non-critical stuff, right? Because the doctor, in order to be financially feasible, can't do all them things themselves and bill the insurance company or us. So we need to just change the expectation. And I think,
But the important stuff.
This dialogue that you're having here, I thank you for sharing that, because I think that's shared by a lot of people. And Colleen, I bet you would concur with that, having been around agents for a long time, and that's not necessarily.
Absolutely. It's the hardest thing to feel that you're not meeting all their needs for them. But you are. You're actually doing a better job, because you can only talk to one person at a time.
Going to an inspection, you're wasting 2-3 hours at an inspection when you really don't need to be there. All you need to do is tell your clients, listen, if you want to attend the inspection, go to the inspection. I'll be there when the inspection report comes back, and we'll go through the inspection report with your client. That's your job. And to go back to, I'm sorry, but going back to what James was saying before, was if you hire an assistant or you hire another realtor and you feel obligated to give them business, well, that's not always the true thing. You need to tell that agent, they need to start calling people on the phone, knocking on doors, and doing their part as an assistant or as an agent for you. So you don't have to keep on paying them or worry about them not making any money. But as far as Maurice was saying, and Colleen was saying, you have to make sure that your team is introduced to your clients. So listen, I have a buyer's agent or I have an assistant who's going to be helping me, and I want to meet them, and they're going to be taken care of. Now, we have a deal going on with a warehouse, and I said to my son, Ryan, I says, you take care of this. You want to earn a commission off this? you got to take care of this, do the paperwork, make sure that they got the application, all the information that they need to do to carry the load. And that's what you can't be everywhere at once.
So,
Right.
so Ron, and to Rob, that was another big takeaway, what Ron just said that I got from last week is, if you bring on someone, they need to do exactly what Ron just said, go out there and do business. And it's not about just handing them, leads. Because on the recruiting side, when I've talked to recruits looking at the company, other companies are like, well, how many leads are you going to give me? This company says they're going to give me X amount of leads. Well, you better go over there. Because if you're not going to have the mindset of going out and work and just hand it on the plate, it's never going to work. And I also want to chime in from last week, making me think about moving forward. And it made me think back to when I had a transaction coordinator working with a different company, I was 2.5 times more productive because I would hand off the file and move on. And I never had to touch it every day. And Ron, going back, who probably going back to days where Dino and some people were in the same office, we always had a transaction coordinator, and it made a huge difference in our productivity working with buyers and sellers. And that, I'll shut up.
Yeah, we didn't have to handle anything. You just give it to them.
Correct.
Don't call me unless you have a major problem. If you have a major problem, I'll jump in. If you can solve the problem, solve the problem. And that's how we handle it. And because my job was out to get listings. That was my job. Their job, they had to go out prospecting, or the transaction coordinator had to take care of the deal to make sure that it closes on time and everything gets done. It's worth the money to spend on a transaction coordinator if you're really busy.
Yep. So I'm just this link is sent out to everybody here. So if you believe in what you do and that you can really help people, then you have a moral obligation to help as many people as you can. Help as many people as you, and you cannot be successful at this without employing leverage, because then you're limited to 13 to 17, 10, 20, whatever those numbers were. You're limited to the amount of people you can help, and you change lives. Like, we really do change people's lives, and it's not just we're not just realtors. We have impacts on people's lives. Don't wish for it, work for it, right? Everybody says, oh, it'd be nice if I can do that, but that's not going to happen for me. You got to work for it. Everybody's failed in what they do. Everybody's gone through the same things that we've gone through, right? So we need to just be committed to what we're doing. We need to think differently. Oops. We must think differently and see the future first in our own mind, and then we can help it materialize, right? Because if you can't see that vision, and if you're not committed to it, you're going to give up, okay? And you're going to go back to the norm. You're going to go back to the comfort zone, and that's where the frog gets boiled, right? Because at first it feels comfortable. Oh, that's nice warm water here, right? The temperature gets hotter and hotter, and I'm just like chilling out there. Next thing you know, I've been broiled, okay? Or I've been fried. And that's what happens to us in this business. So we need to think differently. And, here's 5 ways to create leverage or time leverage: is set goals with deadlines, right? And understand that you're going to fail and you might have to go back and revisit them. But if you don't have a goal, okay, even if that goal you're flexible with changing the deadlines, nothing significant ever happens without a goal. Right, Ron, you do training. Do things happen without goals? When you go to school, what a goal is, your homework is due by Thursday, right? You have to have the homework done. That's how we learn.
Yeah.
get clear on the result you want, right? You know, if you think it'd be nice just to have a little bit more time and lever things, that's not clarity, right? That's just like a wishy-washy wish list. It's not clear. Find specialists to leverage your time, find a transaction coordinator. If you don't want to build a traditional team, partner with people in your office or use third-party services to do it. Use technology and delegate to free up time. The delegate piece is everybody, at the end of this call needs to figure out how much money you want to make and be realistic and figure out how many hours you want to work. And I want you to know intimately what your hourly rate is, right? Can everybody agree to do that not for me, but for yourself? Figure out what your hourly rate is. Figure out, like, if things go well, I want to make 250, I want to make 500,000, and I want to work 50 hours a week, but I want to take off 8 weeks, or I want to take off 4 weeks, whatever that is. Do the simple math, figure out what your hourly rate is, and then look at your schedule and get very uncomfortable with activities that are below your hourly rate. Like, let me see, Mr. Garver, what would you have to pay somebody to go do a home inspection in New Jersey? A licensee who would open the door and go on a home inspection, what would the hourly rate range from and to?
I would think that it would probably be $40 an hour.
I was thinking 25 to 50. So we're right on the same ballpark. So if you can get somebody to spend 3 hours, you Venmo them $40 at the end, right? You just bought back 3 hours of your life, correct?
Our team is $35 the first hour and then $25 after that.
Okay, so we're all in the same ballpark. We're going over minute details here. How many people on this call have an hourly rate below $40? Is there anybody, when you figure this out, desires to earn less than $40 an hour? And if the answer is everybody has hourly rates that are above that, who has an hourly rate above $250 an hour and knows it? You want to be bold and unmute yourself and just state what your rate is?
A good rate.
What is that, your rate, Ron?
Yep.
So Ron's got a rate of 250. Anybody higher than 250 an hour? So if your hourly rate is half of Ron's hourly rate, or 125, should you be doing a home inspection? You shouldn't be. You should be trying to find a way to delegate that. And the word delegate, in my opinion, is you want to find the lowest paid competent person to do the job. That's delegation, right? Let me even write that down. Delegation. Finding the lowest paid competent person to complete.
I can just give a point here, as far as Maurice is concerned, being there for their clients. And I agree with that, to some extent. I don't think that you need to stay through the whole inspection of 2.5 hours, 3 hours. If you want to go to an inspection, or you want to go to do something with your client at the property, you don't have to stay the whole 3 hours. You can just show up, make sure everything is on point, and say, as soon as everything gets done, I will get a copy of the inspection, and you and I will sit down and we'll go over it together, and we'll summarize what we need to have completed and have done. That is more important than just sitting around doing nothing at an inspection. I just think it's a waste of time. I mean, I used to do it early in my career, but after a while, I just said, why am I here? So, but finding someone like, we're talking about, to handle it. Like I have my son who can go there, show up, make sure everything's running good, and out the door. The main thing is most important is the inspection report. And that's where your job needs to come into, so you can negotiate and work out the issues that come up on an inspection report. Same thing with an appraisal.
So Ron, if you had a experienced transaction coordinator, they could do all that for you. I hate to burst your bubble, but they can do that, and they can probably do it as good as you. And if you set the right expectations, you'll be able to serve, and I use the word serve, more people in Southeast Florida buying and selling houses, Ron, because you do a great job.
Absolutely.
But you limit the amount of people that you can help. You know, like if you were a heart surgeon that can do 4 surgeries a day and you were the best, and 99% of the people lived when you did surgery, and the best competitor you had a 60% success rate, I would make sure that you were just doing the critical components of every surgery so that you could save as many lives as possible. Does that make sense? You know, and that's an extreme example.
Yep.
And maybe it's a morbid example as well, but like I would make sure that, you know, even sewing up the opening and everything that's not critical would be done by a junior person, would be delegated. And Ron, I respect you tremendously, but I think that we must first think differently and see the future first in our mind, and then it will materialize. And that is, you know, letting go, finding somebody who we trust, and perhaps the career path is your son is that person until, you know, he grows his business where he needs to train somebody that can help him grow.
Correct.
Okay, but I want you to, I don't want to just say what you want to hear. I want you to get a little bit uncomfortable. I want to challenge everybody here. I want to break through some of the norms and find ways that you can leverage to better serve clients, to serve more clients, and in return, live a more abundant life, because that's what it's all about, right? You know, most of the people that we attract from the leadership team and the people that, you know, we work with, you know, we're not looking for sharks that just want to, you know, figure out a way how to extract as much money and the highest commission out of a client. We want people who are committed to helping people and finding a better way to do that. And then once we complete those acts of helping people, you know, we turn around, we look and say, oh my God, all that money was put into my account. That's the measure of the value that we created. Okay. You know, we provide the service, and then the pile of gold bars appears in our account. It's not we chase gold bars and figure out what service we need to do to get there. And I hope I'm respectfully, you know, pushing you out of your comfort zone. Everybody here, this is not a Ron Piccolo, Jim conversation here. This is a conversation to figure out, you know, how do we, you know, get uncomfortable redefining our business so that we can serve more home buyers and sellers and renters and tenants, and do it to create an abundant life for ourselves. Because you know what, if we're not living an abundant life, we're going to be miserable. Nobody's going to work with us. We're not going to be efficient, right? So it all comes together. It's a complete circle, right? We can't be a martyr where we feel like we're sacrificing everything and not getting compensated fairly, and we have a horrible job, but we do it to help people. That doesn't work. We have to design that abundant life. And you know, we're part of Remax. We have some of the best people around us. We have great people to share ideas with. You know, we can redefine what a team is. It doesn't need to be the traditional team, the Rob Lazar team. You know, it can be, you know, you just partnering with other people in the office, us getting shared services. There are a lot of different ways that we can reinvent ways to serve clients better and live abundant lives. So I know we're up to 10:30. I can't believe how fast these hours go. I don't know if you think it's painful or they just fly by, but I will say that I learned so much from the conversations that we have together, and from, you know, being surrounded by, you know, great people, you know, in the organization that, you know, share ideas. Anybody have any last comments?
That's a great platform that you have here for everyone to learn and to input their ideas, because this is how everybody grows, you know, and gets their business better, makes their business better, is by listening to everyone and adding to what we're talking about. It's really a good platform.
I mean, like Ron, if we could just delegate one thing a month for the next 6 months, you know, our world could look completely different. Right?
I agree.
And you know, the first thing that we have to do is change the way we think. We must think differently and see the future in our mind, and it will materialize. And lastly is, for those of you who are not completely bought into this and want to have something change or think it would be nice if it changed, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting something different. Okay. For those of us who have gray hair, who've been in the business for a long time, talking to some of the younger people here, you know, please, you know, make some deliberate, intentional changes, and reject some of the things that are going on now, so that you can live that abundant life and serve more people. And it, you know, if you're newer in the business, you might say it sounds corny. You know, Rob keeps saying, let's serve clients, find out a better way to help more people. But that's the, you know, learn it early on. That's the truth of this business is, you know, the more people you help, the better off that you do. The more, you know, you'll find people referring you. It will be such an abundant business that you have, that you will not even recognize it from where it is today if you just follow these principles. So
Can I add one thing, Rob?
absolutely.
I want everyone to keep in mind, the more things you do, the more overwhelmed you are, because I'm the compliance person, the more mistakes you make. So, you know, you're doing yourself a service and you're doing your client a better service to make sure that, you know, all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed, if you have people on your team that are going to help you with that.
And Colleen, I'm gonna conclude this with I want everybody to close your eyes and think about a time when you really, you know, help somebody through, maybe it was a difficult transaction, it's closing day, you get paid, they move into that house, they can't thank you enough. Like, how valuable is that emotional feeling that you have when you got something accomplished, you help somebody, you know, change their life, right? And that has to be the anchoring emotion that drives us through all those challenging times that we have in the process of getting there, right? Because there's no simple transaction. Everything, you know, if you don't expect any simple transactions, you'll never be disappointed. And if you always think about that moment, and, you know, for some of us, maybe it's the money that juices you, but I think for a lot of us, it's just, you know, this was really a great transaction, helping this person do some, you know, get into this property. Everybody has a story. And then at the end of the day, you get paid. It's unbelievable.
Yep.
And use that emotion of helping people, the closing date, the gratitude that the client has, to keep you engaged and to keep you motivated to changing the process. So I leave you all with that thought, and I hope that, you know, impacts you and in a very positive way. And I can't wait to see you guys all next Friday. Have a great weekend, have a productive weekend, and take care.